What's up guys, welcome to another Tutorial Tuesday. Today it's going to be all about Snapseed. I'm going to use the drift method. Freaking incredible. Round F16 for that to get that sunburst. So a couple weeks ago I did a video on how to get the best out of your smartphone photography and images and all that, and I did it mostly on, well, it was all on Lightroom, and I use Lightroom, and it's about editing. Editing's super important, so I'm going to reiterate that, but I got a lot of comments asking about Snapseed, and I do use it. So today's video, we're gonna do two things. I'm gonna break Snapseed up into two videos. The first video, we're gonna do portraits. So we come down here to a nice area of the ditch where it's all pretty, and Brittany's gonna be the model. So we're gonna do portraits, and I'm gonna show you guys the power of editing portraits with Snapseed. And then tonight, which will be a later episode for you, we are going out to do a new moon photography Milky Way shoot. So in part two, we're gonna be doing landscaping, and I'm also gonna be making another video about shooting the Milky Way with the S9 Plus, so that's coming soon. But part two of Snapseed, we'll be editing those that I shoot tonight on the phone and the landscape stuff, because Snapseed is so powerful and there's so many different options, and it just makes sense to break it up into these two videos. All right, but for now, let's find a good spot and get set up. All right, so we found our spot here. I'm gonna use this nice shaded area, and Brittany's got her parasol, which is gonna help all the blotchiness, and I'm using my S9 Plus. I'm gonna go ahead and do some stuff in live focus, but I may turn it down, so we'll see. If you don't have live focus, then I'm gonna go over in Snapseed the features that you can use to mimic that portrait mode or that live focus mode. So let's get to shooting real quick, and then we'll jump into Snapseed. Okay, so we're in Snapseed now, opened our image, and the first thing you're going to see in the bottom are looks, tools, and export. So with portraits in Snapseed, it's really cool. They have a ton of looks in here, so we're going to click on looks, and you can see they just have a ton of just preset looks to start with. You can see a black and white, faded glow portrait, and some of these are real nice, and they're definitely good starting points. But if we want to keep going and if we want to get a good starting point, then we can find the one we like. So for this one, I'm going to use portrait, and I'm going to hit OK. And then we're going to go in here to tools, and this is where you can see there is a ton of stuff on here. And I'm not going to go into detail about all of this stuff. I'm just going to go pick the stuff that I want that's going to help me accentuate this portrait and get the real look that I want. So let's start by going into the portrait tools here, and it's going to bring up a bunch of stuff. And all of this stuff is stackable and changeable and everything within it. So the first thing I'm going to do is bring up her eyes a little bit, and there's two presets for the eyes, eyes 1 and eyes 2. I can't really tell the difference. So I kind of like the way eyes 2 is looking, but it looks a little strong. So I'm going to select it, and then I'm just going to, when you slide back and forth, it will, whatever is highlighted at the top on that particular effect, it will adjust. So if you slide up or down, then you get the menu that has everything in this particular look. So the face spotlight is on now, and I'm just going to drag it around until I get to where I want it. But I kind of like it. It's darkening up everything else, making like a natural vignette. So I'm going to leave it probably around 30 something. Also, if you click on the little slidey icons down there in the center, that will also bring up the menu for whatever effect you have selected. So the next thing is skin smoothing. Obviously this is very popular with anyone who wants smoother looking skin, and with her this will be kind of a nice touch. So obviously that's overkill. I'm just going to bring it up just a little bit, somewhere around 20. And I'm going to click the check mark for OK. And then I'm going to go back in here to tools and back into portrait. See, and now it's stacked, so her eyes look freakishly unnatural, and I don't like that. at all, and you can slide that up so you can see the eye clarity and bring that back down, but I don't even want to go back into that same one. So I'm going to go back into tools now. I'm going to go back into portrait, and I'm going to see what else it has that I might be interested in. I kind of like the spotlight, and I'm going to drag it up and see. So that's just more of what I did. Okay, so the eye look had all three of those things built in. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go just tune the image just a little bit and do some basic adjustments here. I'm going to bring up the contrast a little bit because I want a little bit more contrast. And then I'm going to bring up the saturation just a little bit. And then I might bring up the warmth just a tiny bit, like maybe to 3 or 4 or something. So those are my global adjustments, and I'm happy with those. And at any time, just like in Lightroom Mobile and Photoshop Mobile, if you just down press on the screen and hold it, it'll show you the before and after. So that's what the images started out as, and that's what we've done to it so far. That's everything compounded. So let's go back into Tool, and let's say I want to add a little more lens blur to this thing. Now the lens blur on this is nowhere near perfect, but it does add a bit of an interesting effect. So you need to do 2 fingers to stretch it out or zoom it in or whatever. So I'm just holding with 2 fingers, and I'm just getting this around her face. Then I'm going to go up to this transition area, and I'm going to slide left or right to control the transition area around her face. Okay, once I have it, the transition area where I want it, then I'm going to go back to blur strength, and you can adjust the blur strength. And obviously, again, you can really start to see where it breaks apart and becomes overkill, but if you add just a little bit of it, it becomes nice and subtle. And then I might throw a little bit of vignette strength in there, and then I think that's good, and I'm going to hit the check mark. Now I'm going to go back into Tools, and I'm going to add a little bit of a vignette, a traditional vignette. So you can control the outer brightness and drop it down a little bit. I'm just going to bring it down just a little bit, and then if you swipe down or up, then you can control the inner brightness. I'm just going to brighten that up just a little bit. Okay, so here's the before and the after. Alright, so we got Brittany's pictures. Now we're going to do my pictures so that we have both male and female pictures to play with for this portrait stuff. So let's get shooting with my parasol. Alright, so let's try this on me now, and let's see, because I'm probably going to want to edit this a little bit differently than I did with Brittany. So I've got my photo up, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go select a look that I like. And I think for this one I might do a black and white actually. So I'm liking the start of this fine art. Actually, I think I like the structure better. So I'm going to start with the structure mode, and then I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm going to go into Tools. And I'm going to go, the first thing I want to do is see if I can heal out this little area. And if you pinch to zoom, whoops, that was awkward. I can just click that. There was a little scratch on my face or something there, and I can just heal out some of these. So obviously this healing thing doesn't work too great, but if you get closer, that's not bad. Especially if there's just a little issue like that. I'm going to zoom all the way back out. Now I'm going to go into my tools, and I'm going to go into portrait, and I'm going to go with the eyes 2 set, but that's a little harsh, so I'm going to slide up to the eye clarity, and I'm going to slide it back down to maybe 25. And then face spotlight, I think I might increase that a little bit, because that's kind of a natural vignette looking thing. And skin smoothing, I don't really need any skin smoothing because my skin is beautiful. And I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to go back into Tools, and maybe I'll try out a little bit of this lens blur, because on the picture that I shot of Brittany that I just edited, I did use the live focus feature on the S9 Plus, and that helped blur out the background a little bit. with Samsung software, but on this image I shot it in RAW. So I'm just going to go ahead and adjust it to get some lens blur in here, some artificial lens blur in here, because shooting it RAW, Samsung software doesn't have that capability. So it's definitely not going to be perfect because I can't get it completely around my face and nothing else. Maybe if I do it like that. Whoops. Maybe if I do it like that. So I'm going to adjust the transition a little bit. Now I'm going to adjust this a little bit more. Oops. And I'm going to drag it over. I'm trying to get it to where it doesn't look too wonky around the edges of my face. I think we're just going to have to go with that. And now that I've got the, whoops. And now that I've got that going, I'm going to bring it back to the blur strength, and I'm going to decrease the blur strength a little bit because I don't want it to be too harsh. That's a before and an after, but actually I think I want to undo that a little bit. So I'm going to undo that last part, and then I'm going to go back into Tools, Lens Blur. Okay, so I put it down to 10, so I dropped it so it's not as harsh there. So now I'm going to go into Tools, and I'm going to go into Tune Image, and I'm going to tweak some of the basic stuff again, like my contrast. So I want this to be more contrasty. And then because I did that, I'm going to go in and drop the highlights a little bit. Just a little bit. And I think that's good. So now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to, before I forget, I'm going to add my vignette because I want a little bit of a vignette. And I'm going to position to where the center of the vignette is around my face. Okay. Let's see what drama does. So I kind of like that drama a little bit, but it had it way up there, which is too harsh, so I'm going to bring it back down. And at any time, if you find something, like let's just pick one of these random things, and you don't like it at all, you just hit the X down here in the bottom left, and it'll take you back out to the main panel. And you could theoretically put another look over this. But if you do that, you got to be careful because it can undo or crush a lot of things that you've already done. I'm going to add a little bit of curves adjustment here. I'm going to just bring up the highlights just a little bit. Just a little bit of an S curve. Just tiny, tiny. And then I think I'm going to try to do a selective thing on my eyes. And I'm going to do selective. And I'm going to hit the plus down here. And then I'm just going to go over, select the eyes, and then I'm going to scroll up to the brightness and bring the brightness up just a little bit. And I'm going to add another one right there, and I'm going to bring the brightness up just a little bit. So it's worth mentioning that the selection tool here, the selective tool, is nowhere near as good as Lightroom's selective tool. So that's the one downside that I'm really not feeling about Snapseed, is if you really want to get in there and do some selective edits, Lightroom Mobile would be a much better choice for that, because you can actually paint in with your finger, and it's much more powerful in what it gives you. This selection brush only gives you brightness, contrast, saturation, and structure. And structure is basically their version of clarity. So then if I bring this all, add a little structure to my face, you can see the red is all the affected area. So I'm going to bring it down to where the only affected area is my face. And then I'm going to increase the structure just a little bit. Alright, so there's more I could play with in this, but I think I'm happy with that. I like the black and white, I like the contrasty look. There's the before from the raw image from the phone, and there's all the stuff that we've done to it. So now I'm just going to go to export and save, or you can share straight to Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And that's kind of all I want to do to these. Alright, so there's definitely a lot more to Snapseed than just that, but those are kind of a lot of the things that I would do if I was editing a portrait in Snapseed. So I'm pretty impressed by the results, and as you can see, Snapseed is pretty powerful, and the great thing about it compared to some of the other ones is that it's all free. And not only is it the app itself is free, but there are no hidden fancy features like in Lightroom. You know, I didn't know this for a while until after I had it, because I had a Lightroom, because I have an Adobe account. But apparently if you don't have an Adobe account, then there's like features like the selection and stuff like that that you can't access in Lightroom. So that's kind of a bummer. And Snapseed is not like that. You can have full access to everything, and it's free, and it works on both Android and iOS. So that's fantastic. All right, so I'm gonna call this an episode. I gotta go get ready for tonight and do the part 2 of this video. So if you like this and you wanna see more, definitely make sure you subscribe to the channel. I've got new videos every Tuesday and Friday. And if you have any questions about, I don't know why I'm holding my tripod like that. And if you have any questions about anything that I talked about or did or went over in Snapseed, or that I didn't go over, leave them in the comments below and I'll definitely answer them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.